And just go silent on the 2 and the 1, you know what I mean? So 5, 4, 3.
Well, you've done this before. Will Arnett, welcome to the Rolling Stone interview. How you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Let's talk about SmartLess for a second.
Yes.
Now, when before Sean Hayes and the other guy, Johnny,
JB,
Johann
JB,
Sebastian Bachmann.
Yeah.
Before Sean and Jason got involved with this, it was going to be called The Journey. Now, what was that podcast going to be before they sort of bum rushed in?
Oh, it's going to be really deep.
Okay, this is what I mean. So what was the podcast you had in your mind?
I was going to do something that was really going to connect with people, man.
Okay.
And then I just did this podcast where we talk about just nothing. That's the best part. I wanted to do this thing that was really, really meet people where they are. And then I ended up doing this thing where it's just me and my buddies goofing around, which is way better, which is way more fun.
How do you feel that the podcast has changed the friendship at all whatsoever? Because this was originally born out of an idea that it was during the pandemic. You guys weren't really able to see each other, but you kind of wanted to hang out, and then it just turned into this thing.
Sort of, yeah. It hasn't. Has it changed our friendship? No. I mean, we're closer than ever.
Yeah.
People have asked that. People ask that about Bradley and me about working on the film. Has it changed your friendship? We're closer. Because we're doing something that we love, and it's a lot of, and we really enjoy it. It's fun, and it's fun on different levels for different reasons. With people you love, like generally that brings you closer together.
Right.
If we were to work together even more, we would bring us closer together, David.
Well, let's not go that far.
We'd get close.
You think?
We would get very close.
I like how optimistic you are about that.
I'm optimistic about everything.
No, it's good. It's a good, it's a glass half full attitude, and I think we could use more of that right now.
It's not half full. It's full.
Oh, wow. It's a glass totally full attitude.
Complete brimming.
It's a brimming glass attitude.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about podcasts that are scratching an itch with people? And not just like what you do, but I feel like in general, it's become this sort of thing that people have really kind of tuned into. I mean, there's a reason that it's a $1 billion industry right now.
I don't know. I wish I knew. I used to be kind of cynical about podcasts. I was like, yeah, I love it when it was called radio. And then look down the barrel of the camera. Yeah. Radio felt like it was just filling the airwaves between songs or between things, and you had to get the news, and it was just, it was always on a timeline. Podcasts are like, hey, there's no restrictions here. We're just here to do this.
Right.
That's it. This is it. We're not leading up to anything else. You're getting it. It's just a bunch of BS.
It could be
today we did the podcast. I was in, and Thoreau is really going to get after me for this. I was in sleeveless t-shirt because I'd been at the gym, and you can't contain this shit.
You barely contain it now.
I mean, this is
I got you.
This sweater is a triple XL.
No, it's a 3-alarm fire. I got it.
My point is, I just come back from the gym. I realized that I'd mistimed how much time I had, so I had to connect. And then my girlfriend made me food, and she delivered on-camera food onto the floor. And Jason's like, "Who's putting food on the floor? Is she on all fours?" I go, "No, she just put food by the door. She didn't want to interrupt." Like it's a real loose operation,
right?
But that's the fun of it.
Who came up with the idea of bringing on a guest but not telling the other two?
Well, that's controversial, and I did.
Okay.
And it's controversial because they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, are we going to trust the guy with the good memory or not?
Not knowing that they would eventually bring your ex-wife on, which is still one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. And not just because it would potentially clear up whatever opinions people had. That's not your concern. That's whatever. But like there's something really just wonderful about hearing the kind of good vibes, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
Bone homey, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Like the real sense of just how well you two still seem to get to, still are with each other.
Yeah.
And having that kind of come through even just through a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, Amy texted Sean and me this morning saying, we all got nominated for Golden Globes. Let's party.
Yeah, congratulations, by the way.
Thanks. And she said, I don't have Bateman's number, and that's probably for the best. That was the text. But, yeah, of course. And people think that they know. People have also, over the years, I've read so many times people and opinions they think they have. And it's like, it's fucking hilarious to me how much shit is just made up and they have zero idea. It's like, oh, you think you know what my life is?
But I feel like that's the human condition in a nutshell, where there's a part of you that goes like, oh, I don't want to know about that. That's between these two people.
That's how I feel.
Business. And then there's another part of you that's like, go on, and you're eating popcorn and just like.
Look, yes, and it's part of celebrity culture that we all participate in. And by the way, it's been good to me, so I don't want to shit on it.
What's your relationship like with fame today?
It's funny. It's a funny thing. I still struggle with it, and there are a lot of, you got to be careful. It's like, okay, the universe will be like, great, you don't want it, we'll take it away. Fame is just a weird thing, and I'm not like the most famous dude in the world by any stretch. So sure. It's not like people really care that much what's going on in my life for the most part. I just think that, well, we just live in a world where everybody has an opinion on it. The problem is that you hear it all at the same volume all the time. And I'm like, okay.
So was this, I mean, it's funny when you talk to people who have excelled in a creative endeavor, you always want to go back to the origin point. Was there something, did you make somebody laugh in 5th grade and then you liked that feeling and you chased after that or whatever? You grew up in Toronto. Was there a creative urge that hit early, or was it something that happened later? And what was it tied into being famous, or was it just tied into like getting a reaction from somebody?
No, it was not tied into being famous. And it was much more, I think I liked the idea of being an actor. What I wanted to do was come to New York and be an actor, which was my intention when I landed here in August of 1990. I was coming here to be an actor. Mm-hmm. And not a comedic actor.
No, capital A, I'm going to study a Strasberg actor.
I'm going to study Strasberg. People are going to take me seriously, and I want to do some heavy, deep shit. And I think that I thought that I had a chance to do stuff, and that was a way that I could express myself, and that it was what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of dive in and do some, dramatic roles. That spoke to me. And somewhere along the line, I started reading for sitcoms, even though I initially didn't want to because I thought they were beneath me. And then I was desperate to get a sitcom.
After 2 years of no work, surprising.
After 2 weeks, I was like, oh my God, I'll read for anything. Are you kidding? So you go in there with these sort of lofty ambitions as a young person, and then I'm like, fuck, man, I got to pay the rent, and that's how I sort of started kind of backing my way into comedy, was through reading for sitcoms and then doing pilots and doing sitcoms and stuff. I didn't have the luxury of doing Second City or any kind of sketch comedy or stand-up.
You don't come from a comedy background.
No, or improv at all. And then I kind of learned it all backwards.
Well, and you were booking gigs in the late 90s, it seems like, right? Like you showed up on The Sopranos. I think I walked into the room the other day and my kid was watching Sex and the City.
Sure.
And there you were on TV. And it was like, I think that's Will Arnett, a very young Will Arnett.
Yeah.
And then, you get Arrested Development and it feels like it becomes this massive change. I found this, somebody asked you, like, was there a moment when you became Will Arnett in all caps? And you're like, I was always that guy. I was just waiting for everybody to catch up.
Yeah.
And it feels like Arrested Development is kind of where people catch up. Was there a moment where you felt that something had changed, like that you knew people were not only watching to the show, but reacting to it the way they were?
Yeah, I think, by the way, that quote is to me, it's so funny. I think about things.
It's going to be the headline of this piece and the pull quote.
I said that, like, what a wise ass.
I don't know how serious you were when you said it.
I had to have been kidding. I mean, I've said so many like dumb stuff where people are like, did you really say this? I'm like, yeah, I didn't mean it. When you hear it out of context, it sounds like I'm trying to say something like really, years ago I did an interview and they said, back when I was married, and they said, what's it like being married to the funniest person in America? And I said, I don't know, you'd have to ask my wife. And that one like dogged me for a long time. I was like, I'm just fucking around, man.
Sounds funny when you say it.
Yeah.
When it shows up in print,
When you read it in black and white,
how-
yeah, when it's read back in court, please read back. The defendant said, you're like, well, fucking, let's not say defendant, So yeah, but I think I remember a moment we were making Arrested Development, and to say it changed everything is an understatement. In my life,
Of course.
is an understatement. We started shooting in August of 2003, and it didn't air until I think it was November 9th, 2003. And in those few months in there, we were making those shows in a vacuum. We had no reaction. The scripts were outlandish and bizarre, and the scenes were insane. And so, like, hey, we might be making the worst thing of all time. Like, there's a chance we're making the world's worst television program. But we were all enjoying it and having a lot of fun. I remember one of the editors who was up, the writers were up on the second story above our stages, and there's an editing room there. And one of the editors saying, like, man, I'm putting these shows together. They're really good. I was like, oh, really? Like, I had no concept of what it was like to do something really good.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
Yeah.
I hadn't ever done something really good.
And not just something good, but like something that really hits too.
Yeah, something really hit. I never really done it. And it didn't occur to me, when we first aired, when the first reviews came out, I remember the Studio 20th, we got these packages of reviews, actual paper reviews,
Sure.
photocopies, whatever, mimeograph. Reading all these one after another, and they were all for the most part, glowing reviews. And I was like I would give anything right for now to do something and to have that sort of like breakthrough. And I'm like, oh yeah, it seems pretty good. The people like it. Like I had no context for any of it. And then I remember David Cross saying to me, hey, people are liking what you're doing on the show. Do you know that people are liking the show? And Bob Odenkirk said something similar to me as well, because he was on the show that first season. And
Right. And then he directed you in the
then I
movie
made
with
two
Dax.
movies with Bob.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah, we made Let's Go to Prison and Brother Solomon.
Forgot about Brother Solomon for a
Yeah,
second.
so I spent a lot of time with Bob over the next couple of years, and I love Bob Odenkirk. I really do. The idea was to go and do something like Arrested. Now, of course, that was not as sort of dramatic as that, but to go and do something that felt worthy, that felt really good. You just want to do something that feels really satisfying. That felt really satisfying doing that show. Shooting that show, doing those scenes, laughing a lot, and having the shows turn out so well. Getting to work with those scripts from, the brilliant Mitch Hurwitz, and to get to be a part of something like that, that's really gratifying. That's the goal.
And I would think, as frustrating as it must have been to have been a working actor in New York for a couple of years and not feel like you were where you wanted to be.
13 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could ask questions about the answer, I guess, and like we could talk about that and see how that worked. But the idea being that like you had gone through this entire career arc before you got Arrested Development.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine what it must have been like, what it would have been like rather, if you had gotten Arrested Development right off the bat. And then you kind of start off on that high, and then you spend the rest of your career chasing that.
I'm gonna ask Lewis to bring my phone in for a second, because I'm gonna read you a quote.
Okay.
This was told me, and Mark Chappell told me this. You ready for this?
Okay.
And
Your
this-
writing partner, right?
My writing partner.
Yeah.
AKA Chappie.
Got it.
And-
Noted.
So this is to answer like what would have been different if I'd gotten Arrested Development year one of living in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Those the gods wish to punish, first they grant their wishes.
Remind me who said that quote, because I know it, but I can't remember who said
I
it.
don't know. He doesn't know either.
Dick Van Dyke. Let's just say Dick Van Dyke.
Oh God, it's my agent calling. Was it Dick Van Dyke? But again, though somebody can look it up. But somebody got AI in here. Those the gods wish to punish, first they grant their wishes. Fucking. I'm full of quotes these days.
I
Have
was
you
gonna
noticed?
say, I wish that
insane.
mic came off so you could drop it right there.
I know.
Back when this show was on, like in its first run, and was really, really starting to find an audience, how many times would people come up and start singing the final countdown to you?
Oh, they did. People do everything. They do the chicken dance to me. They'd yell Michael from across the street.
Oh my God.
People would, huge. Countless times people have told me that they've made a huge mistake.
Yeah. BoJack, how was this pitched to you? Because I can see on paper, not having read a script, but just given the elevator pitch, the log line, you might go, I think I know what this is, and okay. And then obviously what it turned out to be was
Raphael Bob Waxberg, who created BoJack and who wrote it, and who's a brilliant guy, said, I'm going to create this show. How would you like to come be part of a show that for the rest of your life, people are trying to retrofit your life to make it seem like you're like BoJack Horseman?
Oh,
and I said,
okay.
great.
You just answered my next 7 questions.
Yeah.
Right.
I love BoJack. I love doing it. Raph is an incredible writer. And he had a script. And so we made a 13-minute short first, a pilot, if you will. And a bunch of people, it was a crazy cast in the pilot. Obviously, Aaron, the delightful and lovely and charming, and my friend Aaron Paul, who I adore, Amy Sedaris, my old friend Amy, whom I also adore, everybody who I adore. And we made this 13-minute pilot, and everybody passed. Everybody in Hollywood passed on it. Every channel.
Everybody in Hollywood passed.
Everybody in Hollywood. Sorry, you're right. How could I? I love the fans know it better than I do.
Yeah, I know that was the most obnoxious fan moment I've had in a long time. So I wholeheartedly
keeping
apologize.
it in.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that.
It's one of those things like fans are like, because when he showed up at the thing, blah, 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 I'm like, yeah, I don't remember.
Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Everybody passed on it. Every network passed on it, except for Ted Sarandos they were like the last house on the block, the last shop on the block. And he called me and said, I think I'm going to do this horseback BoJack. Like, I don't even know if he got it right. I hope he got it wrong. But he said, no, I'm going to pick up BoJack Horseman. I think it's really funny. That seems like a controversial thing to say. I'm going to pick it up because it's really funny. But in that my business, that is not always the reason that they pick stuff up.
No. In fact, how many times has somebody heard this when they pitch an idea and the response they get back is, we love it. It's great. It's funny. It's really smart. We would never make it.
Yeah.
We can't wait to watch it.
Yeah.
But, we're not going to put money into this. And the fact that he can be like, no, I want to pick this up because it's funny.
Because it's funny. Not because it's commercial, because we think that it has, mass appeal and we think that it's going to bring viewers in, simply because it's funny. So that was a great, I love Ted and we've had a long relationship since we first started. At that point, we were doing Arrested Development, the re-up on Netflix. And we were one of their first streaming shows. So at the time we had I gotten to know him and I was really excited that he wanted to do it. We were so into it and Ted was so into it. This is before they really blew up and became the Netflix that we know today that just bought the U.S. government, I think. I don't know how to read Bloomberg, but I think that I don't know what happened.
I think they're waiting to see if someone's going to throw in Paraguay as well. But yeah, they pretty much.
This is right. They're pretty close. They used to have this smaller office down on Maple Drive in Los Angeles, and there were about 5 of them in the office at the time. And Ted and I, a couple times, would go and have dinner, and then we'd go to his office, and nobody was there at sort of 9 o'clock at night, and watch kind of previs episodes with like rough animation of episodes of BoJack, because we were just really into it. That was season 1.
It's amazing how when you go back and watch that show, not only does it stand up beautifully still, but the idea that under the cover of this really wonderful strain of absurdism is so much pain and catharsis and like real dark shit that you guys are getting into, and both of them work. Like it's one of those things where it's not an either or. It just, I think about that eulogy episode a lot. How long did it take you to do that? Because I know it's just you reading a thing in a booth, but like that's a performance. Like that's a one-shot performance.
We did a couple of different things, but it's basically one read through.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That was a crazy, all of that was crazy making that episode, Free Churro. It was the table read, it was just me. which was weird, and all the writers and my sister, weirdly enough. Normally we'd all be at the table. Paul F. Tompkins would always sit basically to my right, Amy Sedaris on the speakerphone in the middle, because she never came for a table read, not once. And that free churro day, I just showed up and it was just me. It was so bizarre. And then reading it, it was always, I was just in the booth, and on the other side of the glass is Raphael and the engineer. And we'd done the table read the week before, and we knew what it was, and he'd sort of made some adjustments. And he was kind of like, in his sort of Raph way, like, all right, let's go. It's sort of like kind of funnily upbeat. It's going to be fun, and then doing this like really intense thing. There were so many moments where we'd do like, there'd be some really heavy, rough, all that whole thing of when Bojack goes to Arizona and he's on the boat and everything like that in the driveway. It'd be really heavy. And then we like finish the take and Raphael would be like, we got it!
Aces!
Yeah. And I'd be like, Raph, this is not fun.
Oh my God.
This is a bummer, dude. And it ruined a lot of Wednesdays for me. I'd record from sort of 10 till 11 or 11:30 or something. And then I'd have to spend the rest of the day trying to shake off the Bojack.
It's a lot of dark stuff in there.
Yeah. But it was really impactful and yeah, super, super funny. So many profoundly funny moments and funny bits and funny jokes. And it was also, kind of like a, really like an essay on mental health and depression and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's why, clearly that's what he had set out to do when he wrote the thing. It wasn't just going to be like, we're going to throw in a bunch of visual gags and there's some funny animals that are animal heads on people's bodies. And then, we'll just start counting the money and you can back the Brink truck up. But like, it's really the idea that like, this is the cover. This is the sugar that we're going to put some serious like antidepressant 100%. Meds in here.
100%. And I always really liked that. And we had a satisfying moment. Ralph and I did one of those panels with a dude who had talked about how the first season, what it was like to get the reception. And I brought up, because the guy was moderating the panel, and I said, you gave it a shit review the first season and then jumped on board. And you didn't, it's kind of like, I was like, you got to cop to that.
And did he?
Sort of. Felt fucking great. It felt so good.
I found some quote of yours. Maybe it was, I don't think it was on Conan's podcast, but it was on some other appearance on a podcast or an interview that you'd done where you had taken issue with how some people had said like, well, Will Arnett all his characters are assholes. He's really great at playing assholes. Yeah. And you were like, no, I can't remember the exact quote, so I'm going to butcher it, I'm sure. But I think you said something along the lines of like, no, I like really arrogant and incompetent.
Yeah, I used to really like that.
Yeah, like you put those two together and it really works.
As I used to say, it's a potent elixir.
Right. But if you look at like BoJack and then Flaked, which comes, I think, right after it.
Kind of overlapped, yeah.
Yeah, there's this real idea that you are also attracted to these characters who are kind of trying to claw their way back out of this hole that they've found themselves in and get to some sort of point where they can get to like terra firma and actually kind of try and find, if not peace of mind, then at least get to a point of stability. What is it about those type of characters that attract you?
I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting to have people who are, everybody's flawed. These are, and these are heightened versions of the people maybe that are in our lives. But these are people who have kind of fucked up and done it in different ways. Flaked, Chip had fucked up and he'd never done anything at all other than kind of fuck up. He wanted to get to a baseline of just kind of being a good person and live an honorable life, if you will. But he didn't kind of know how to do it. BoJack was somebody who had achieved a certain degree of success monetarily, and he had a TV show that had been. It's the comment I get all the time. on anything. Or isn't that the horse from Horsing Around? And I'm always like, good one. You know what I mean?
Didn't you say that you got recognized in a restaurant once and by somebody who didn't know who
This
you
past
were,
summer.
but they heard your voice and were
Yes.
like, "Are you BoJack?"
Yes, a server this past summer
Oh my
on
God.
Long Island. She said to me, do you know the animated show BoJack? I said, yeah. She goes, are you him? And I was like, fuck, man, yes.
Yes, I am. Yes.
And yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about this new movie of yours. Is This Thing On?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a Herculean effort to draw a through line, I think, between BoJack and the character in Flake to this character that you're playing in this movie.
Well, yeah, I think that what's different is, again, they're all just sort of guys going through various, otherwise, what's the alternative? Like, I'll do characters who are doing what? I guess I could have do movies where the guys, my daughter has been apprehended by some terrorists, or by the way,
Go on. Sounds interesting.
By the way, I'd give anything to do that. No, but or I could, whatever, some murder mystery like that.
Sure.
But everybody's going to have their thing. And I just like the simplicity of these people who are just trying to get better. This character in Is This Thing On, Alex, his bottom isn't much different from those other guys. And
This is true.
And he's much closer to somebody we all know.
For those who don't know, just give it a quick elevator pitch for this thing. It's a story of a gentleman who's going through a bit of a crisis.
Yeah.
And he sort of stumbles into a bar one night and ends up doing an open mic stand-up comedy routine.
Yeah.
And suddenly finds that he's got a sense of liberation. It helps his marriage, which he's been having some issues with. He suddenly finds a sense of identity. And like all good stories about marriage and identity, this starts on a barge in Amsterdam.
That's true. So I happened to be on a barge in Amsterdam with some friends at this lunch, which I'd never done before, and I haven't done since. Should be pointed out.
Okay, good to note.
And I meet. I'm sat next to this guy, and my friend introduces me to this fellow, John Bishop. He says, "Well, do you know John?" I say, "I don't." And he says he's a very successful comedian in the UK. I'm like, well, fantastic. And he says, "John, tell Will the story how you became a stand-up." And he proceeds to tell me this pretty incredible story that really grabbed me. For the basic tenets of which you kind of outlined. He was going through a divorce and he didn't want to pay a cover charge at a bar where they were doing an open mic night, so he put his name on the list, and he ended up going up, and for the first time kind of spoke his truth about where he was at and what he was going through. And I found that really compelling. And what really got me was that he went back the next week.
Yeah.
And did it again.
Yeah.
And basically he said, that Mondays were the toughest day when he was going through his separation because he had his kids on the weekend. And then Monday he drops them to school. He knows he's not going to see them all week. So Monday nights were really hard. And that was a Monday that he went in that first time. And he felt kind of good for the first Monday. So he did it again because it made him feel good. And he kept going. And he never told anybody in his life that he was doing this. Didn't tell a soul. And all of a sudden, a few months into it, he's kind of getting good at it and figuring out his voice. And we used the line, his mom sat down and said, "Oh my God, I didn't realize that your life was so bad." And he's like, no. This is a good thing. I'm getting relief from this.
This is the power of the tight 10.
Yeah. This is the power of the tight 10. So that really got me. And then, of course, also the true, the other sort of, all the unbelievable parts about the story are the truest, which is that his wife happens to stumble into a different club. He's doing he's in the middle of a bunch of acts, and he gets asked to do it on a Saturday night. And she comes in with some new friends from work and sees him on stage, and she has no idea. She hears him go, "Please welcome to stage John Bishop," and she's like, "What?" And then he goes up and he starts telling jokes, and he's free and loose and smiling and having fun, and people are laughing, and she's blown away. And then he sees her, he hears her laugh, and he can see her in the crowd. He kind of freaks out. And afterwards they meet at the bar. She's like, "That's the guy I married. That guy on stage was the dude I married. You're so much happier." And they start talking again. So that, all those elements, and it stuck with me, obviously, to the point where I reached out to our mutual friend and I said, we left Amsterdam, and I said, I think that there's a movie here. First, I called Mark Chappell, my writing partner. I said, do you know the story of John Bishop? And he said to me, yes. I wanted to do that story. I knew somebody who worked for his company was seeing if there was a way that I could do that. I said, dude, we're in.
How had he not brought this to you sooner?
It's a great point. I haven't looked at it that way.
Sorry.
No.
I just broke up a writing partnership.
No, I've got to make a phone call after this, but you're right. He should have. Nobody said that to me yet. How did Chappie not bring it to me earlier? And then we went to the UK and sort of got in touch with John and said, can we come talk to you? And he said, yeah. So I flew to London and started this crazy process.
Right. So it's time to bring Mr. Cooper in.
Yeah, let's bring him in.
When you bring this to Bradley
Yeah.
and say, hey, I'm working on this thing, can you take a look at it? Was there something specific about him besides the fact that you guys had been friends for 20 years or so that made you think, okay, he needs to look at this, specifically him? I feel like he's going to kind of find something that's not quite gelling.
Well, it's kind of unusual when you have a script like this to like, you let some people, sometimes you'll let some people look at it and people read it, people that you trust, and they'll give you thoughts on it. But Bradley happened to be somebody we're old friends. And then in the last kind of couple of years leading up to this is like 2022, late 22, he and I are spending a lot more time together again and sort of reconnected back to the way it was kind of in the old days. And he was in the middle of making this movie, Maestro.
Mm-hmm.
And he had made Star is Born. And I was apart from just trusting him and loving the guy, he's such an incredible, sort of formidable filmmaker, and he understands, and I think he's really good at understanding people and relationships and these kinds of things. And I just knew, he asked me what I was working on. I told him the story of this, and I said, we're kind of at this place. And he said, send it to me, and I'll take a look. And I thought, great. He's got a 6-week break on Maestro. Maybe he'll look at it. Maybe he'll see a fresh set of eyes. And he really does have such a great appreciation and understanding of cinema.
I think that's apparent when you look at his movies.
Yeah.
Like actually scene to scene, shot to shot, the guy has a real visual sensibility. He knows how to tell a story.
That was kind of a stroke of luck, if you will, that happened at that time. And then he said, send it to me and I'll give you my thoughts. It's not a bad idea to get free notes from a filmmaker of his stature.
No, it's a
And
good
I
call.
thought-
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what he was going to say when he called back after having read it rather. And he called and said, I really like it. And if you're okay with it, I'd like to direct it and rewrite it with you guys. I was like, yeah, great. Like, are you for real? And he's like, yeah. And I said, that would be amazing.
And he was the one that really started putting more emphasis on the marriage aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, we had stuff for the marriage, but he was really getting into understanding who Tess was, the wife.
Yeah.
Alex and Tess are the married
Played by
couple.
Laura Dern, yeah.
Played by Laura Dern. And Laura came in because of Bradley. Bradley brought Laura in. Again, all these things just sort of kept, raising the stakes and making it so much better. And then a few months into it, he was like, this character of Tess needs to be kind of a badass. She needs to be a titan, was the word that he used. And she needs to be like a retired athlete, be really strong and really be your equal. And I think it's got to be Laura Dern. And of course I heard that. I was like, well, yeah, but how's that going to happen? And so Bradley went to Laura and she agreed, and it just changed everything.
It really does feel like it's a battle of equals up there.
Yeah.
And especially when you consider that this guy starts in a place of he's got to put himself back together again. And then he emerges bionic, stronger, faster, slightly funnier.
Yeah, slightly.
And she's starting to get back into her career. She's going to start coaching as this athlete. And then you kind of see them once they get to that point, especially after she sees your character in the club, where I keep going back, there's a moment where she goes, give me a smoke.
Mm.
And you start to feel like something's changed.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't seem antagonistic. It seems like they're actually communicating for the first time in a very long time. And that's when I feel like the whole second half of that movie takes off in a really interesting direction.
Mm-hmm. These are people who she feels like she's put her life on hold. Feels like she's been left on an island. He feels like he was going out doing the things that he thought he was supposed to do, which is go out and earn a living and just be miserable forever. And neither of them are talking to each other about that. He was loving her from a sunny day. And she's like, you got to love me on the rainy days.
So you had never done any stand-up prior to prepping for this film where you would go up and go do open mic nights, right?
Never once. Yeah.
So here, did people recognize you when you went up and did this? Because you did this as Alex Novak, your character's name.
Yeah. Yeah, I did it every night for about 6 weeks, like 3 times a night at the Cellar. And I was living around the corner, and I'd just walk over there kind of 9:30, 10:30 at night. Bradley and I would text each other like, all right, meet you over there. We'd go over and I'd go up as Alex Novak and work out the various sets that we have in the film. Longer sets than we actually use, but just different material. And sometimes pieces from the first set, pieces from the second set. But I was going up as Alex Novak, introduced, often, please welcome to the stage for the first time, Alex Novak. And just to try to understand what it's like to go up on stage, what it's like for this guy, for somebody who has no connection as a performer, to go up and get on stage. And it was crucial, it's funny. At the time, it wasn't like, let's go and prep.
Right.
Let's go and, check.
I'm going to go full method. I'm going to Lenny Bruce this shit for 2 weeks.
No, it wasn't. It was like, let's go over to the Cellar and try this out. Let's go back. And then during the day, work on those bits to see. And because the assignment was to, go and do that. What it turned out was, in effect, rehearsing in front of real audiences and getting that vibe. And B was to, first of all, as a performer or somebody who's been sort of performing for a number of years, my instinct is to go out there and to figure out a way to try to win the audience over if I can, right?
Right.
Like if I were going up as myself, I'd be like, and I'm not a stand-up, I'd be desperate to like, how can I at least try to salvage a couple laughs here somehow, however cheap.
Those crickets are loud up here, man. They're really loud.
But the assignment was to really go and figure out like, no, I got to go and do this and stick to this. So audience would often know who I was and so I'd come up and they'd be like laughing and then confused. Right. But I had to kind of stick to my guns and just kind of plow through that and keep doing this set.
I've seen the film a number of times now, and this keeps occurring to me, knowing that you went up and did actual open mic nights and did a couple of sets a night as Alex. Let's say I'm somebody who has a famous persona and I'm doing this as somebody else, and I'm talking about my character going through a heinous divorce.
Yeah.
After, and again, hypothetically, I have been married to somebody who was famous.
Sure.
And then a divorce played out in the public court of opinion, regardless of whether it's their business or not about what happened. And suddenly I'm on stage as somebody else. At best, they're thinking, is he doing some sort of Andy Kaufman bit? And at worst, they're like, this is Will Arnett talking about the disillusion of his marriage. Is he okay having a nervous breakdown on stage?
Yeah.
10:30 p.m. on a Tuesday at the Comedy Cellar.
Not only that, he's a little late if he thinks he's getting a divorce. He's like 14 years too late or whatever it is. Like it's just occurring to him, or they're Googling me, going like, "Did he get married again? Is he having another?" In real time. So, but there were also like really gratifying moments. I remember one time, one night, standing outside the Cellar after having gone up, and this girl comes up and she said, "So are you still talking?" I think I'd told the story about, it was one of the later sets, and I was talking about missing her. So this girl was like, but you guys are talking again and things are good. And honestly, I was like, this is fantastic. Yes, it's all good. And I was like, I'm accomplishing something if they believe me. And weird, it was on a lot of levels. It was very odd.
So I'm curious how this made you think differently about your day job. Because I like the fact that you talk about as a performer, your instinct is to go up there and get the laugh, or is to go up there and entertain and do the song and dance.
Something, yeah.
And this is forcing you, in order to play these scenes the way they need to be played, this is forcing you to sit in that uncomfortable silence or to kind of feel your way through this in front of a crowd in real time. So how did this make you think differently about acting?
Well, it's funny you say that. That was, now that I think about it, that was kind of like the beginning in a lot of ways of trying to connect with this character. And that was the beginning of this next phase of making the film, coming out of writing. And because Bradley stopped me, he knew, he knows me well, and he knew that left to my own devices that I probably would try to figure out a way to bail myself out and make a joke and figure out a way to be funny or in some cheap ass way. And he stopped me. I'd done two sets in Austin at the Mothership. And then we came back and started doing every night at the Cellar. And he stopped me that first night at the Cellar. And he put his hand on me as I was and he said, "We're doing something different."
Different
than what you think you're not going up there to do. Don't worry about trying to make them laugh. Don't worry about your going up there and being you and trying to honor whatever you think that they think about you or that you need to be a funny dude. We're here to work on this. We're doing something different. And that's all he said to me. And I totally got it in that moment. I went, right. And it kind of gave me the license to just not worry about all that shit and not have to go out there and be funny, but to go out there and absorb the silence, have it be awkward, and know that that was okay. Because it's scary to go out there and to just be dry and say I don't have any jokes, think I'm getting a divorce. People don't know how to react. It's funny. Like when we shot that first scene of Alex going up, they take me from upstairs, and then they catch me downstairs with a different camera and go on stage, all one big long. The audiences are paid SAG background actors, but they're told nothing. You're at a comedy club. Laugh if you want to laugh. Don't laugh if you don't want to laugh. Be an audience. That's it. Go with it. So it was like a real audience trying to figure out what the fuck was going on.
I don't know how familiar you are with podcasts, but Marc Maron obviously did What the Fuck for WTF for ages, and it's amazing how you listen to those podcasts that he did where he would talk to other stand-ups and stuff, or just him talking about, what it was like to be in that game for decades. And it consistently hammered the idea that you're naked and vulnerable up there. Even if you've got a really good, a good set with a really great closer, it's just you. It's just you and that audience and that microphone.
Yeah, it is. It is. I bombed a few times. It wasn't great. One night, spectacularly. One night we did a bunch of jokes. Kind of a fun. Every once in a while, we do stuff that we had written that's not in the movie. And it was me and Bradley and our buddy Bob, who's a former stand-up, and he writes a lot, and he writes for a lot of stand-ups, and he's a hilarious comedy writer. So we go one night on a Saturday night, go to the Cellar, to the main room downstairs, kills. Great, right? Great jokes. And Liz, who plays herself in the film, is the manager over there who works Rusty.
Right.
Liz says, you can go around the corner of the Underground. We're like, great. And meanwhile, we've come off, I've killed. I keep saying we. It was a we. I'm going to do a stand-up special. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to write more material. We're going to kill it. After this, are you kidding? Going to have a crit. We go around the corner 5 minutes later. Same material to the bar right next to the Fat Black Pussycat. I would have paid handsomely for a cricket. It was so quiet. And
The bomb of all bombs.
yeah. And I've told this before, and the only laughter I can hear in the back is Bradley and Bob, of course, dying. They're just killing themselves.
Because they know you're falling flat on your face.
And I'm up there bombing, and it's so scary. And I mean, I've been not good before at stuff, so it's not like I'm familiar with failure, but this was like, it's so solitary when you're up there in front of them. You can't hide behind the mic stand. These things aren't wide enough to hide your carcass. And it was rough, man. And I thought, like, there was a moment where I thought, like, I'll just put the mic on the stand and just leave. But now I can't. But then the flip is, once you get through that, it's kind of absurdly funny to you, not to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of like, okay, trying another joke, nothing. Okay, great. And I'm sort of chuckling to myself, finish, go off. And at that point, you'd think that you'd go home and kind of feel crappy about yourself. I actually felt pretty good.
Really?
Yeah. Because at that point, I felt kind of like impervious to criticism.
Yeah, no, you're Teflon at that point.
Yeah,
right?
I'm like, no. I just had 50 people not laugh at everything I said. And the objective was to make them laugh. And I didn't curry a snicker. So I'm
After
good.
that, yeah.
God, say your worst, man. I'm good.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's definitely a difference between like the character you played in Flaked, which you've been very open about how some of the things that were being portrayed in that show
Yes.
was stuff that you were actually dealing with as well. And
Yes.
that, there was
Yeah.
kind of a back and forth
Blurry
there,
line,
a
if
little
you
bit of
will.
a blurring line, sure.
For
Whereas this seems more like, you're in your mid 50s. You
Mm-hmm.
feel like you've talked so much as you've been doing press for this about how your kids have become your baseline, and
Mm-hmm.
it's helped you change priorities and stuff. And like when you see the performance, I feel that you're giving in this thing and playing the father and all that kind of stuff. It's easy to see where those lines are getting blurred as well. But it's not in a kind of like, does he need help? Should we call somebody? Kind of
No. And also, like, I didn't, this story existed. This is inspired by a true story. So it's not like I'm like,
right.
hey, I need to figure out how to grapple with
Yeah.
stuff that's going on in my life.
Yeah.
That wasn't the impetus for this.
No.
It was much more, I love this story. I love the story of these two people who kind of figure out a way to reunite and reconnect. I love that part of it. But this is truly me playing a character and trying to figure out this character. I mean, I'm vastly different from Alex in a lot of ways. I think he'd probably he wouldn't live my life, nor would I live his.
I can't believe that you started prep for this in January of this year,
Mm-hmm.
and then filmed it, and then premiered it at the New York Film Festival, and now it's coming out. And someone had mentioned, like, this has been a crazy year for you. And I think the response that you had, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, was something along the lines of like, it's been one of the most intense, transformative years of my life, but not just as an actor or an artist. It's just been transformative for me as a person, period.
Yeah.
So how so?
Well, in every way. I learned a lot, like going through and doing something that was challenging as an artist and acting in this piece in a really vulnerable way and forcing myself to be really vulnerable in a way that I haven't. You could say Flaked was a precursor in that sense a little bit, but this was a much more really working with Bradley in this way really helped open me up as a performer in the sense that I wanted to give like a really naturalistic and genuine performance and really, really try to access what was going on with this guy. And the process of doing that, I think, helped me shed a lot of stuff that I'd done for years, and as a person too. And I've mentioned this before, what Alex ended up going through in the film and by doing stand-up and how that opened him up, I realized at one point that I was having a similar experience as an actor. I came back to my apartment. I was like, holy fuck, I'm having like on a parallel track, I'm kind of having this same experience, which was really cool. By being vulnerable in this way, by really connecting with this character and trying to be, I shed a certain degree of my cynicism about a lot of stuff. and it reconnected me with the feeling that I had when I first moved here 35 years ago. And I've been I don't know, it kind of made me feel like a kid again. It made me, I was doing it for the love of it. I certainly didn't do this for the money. I didn't make, any. It was a small budget film. We shot for 33 days and it was an incredible experience on every level. And I'm like, wow. And I went into it with the intention of just wanting to make it. And then I got to make it with two of my closest friends, and Mark Chappell and Bradley, and have him take me through this really intense material that we created together, with the only expectation was to make it. That was amazing. Everything else is just kind of noise. That part of it is just the creating of it has totally reinvigorated me. And it brought me back to New York, where now I'm spending a lot more of my time here now. It's been pretty awesome. We used to do this bit back, Bradley and I would do it with our buddy Brian, standing on the street in Santa Monica 20, 25 years ago. And it's the guy who's like talking to his friend and he goes, "Are you kidding? I'm having the time of my life. It's the best. I've never been better." And then steps off the curb and gets hit by a bus.
I can't think of a better place to end this interview.
Yeah.
Will Arnett, thank you for being on the Rolling Stone interview.
It was super fun. Thank you for having me.
You got it.
Chris, good rehearsal. Let's roll.